Hi, I'm Maggie. I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist. I have degrees in psychology, theology, and marriage and family therapy, and a national certification in dialectical behavioral therapy. In this video, I'm not seeking to diagnose anyone. I'm only willing to offer insight into situations like these. Hello. Hi, everybody. Happy Monday. We had to reschedule the Sunday. It was a very busy weekend, very fun weekend, but I just was not prepared. So I have my notes ready. We're going to talk about something really, really interesting. But before I do, I wanted to let you know the dogs have decided to be in the room with me. So if you hear weird noises, that's where it's coming from. Adric is in here. Hi, good to see you. And Adrian is in here. Hi, good to see you. Thank you for being here. So we're going to talk about something called aphantasia. And it's really interesting. I remember it was a couple years ago when this came out, and I didn't really think a whole lot of it. And then I saw some stuff on social media about it, and it's interesting, but until I saw a video with someone who actually has it, it didn't really make me think about it a lot. And I think with a lot of the stuff we're talking about, it's good to talk about it now. Hi, Nina. Thank you for being in here. So aphantasia means that you can't visualize inside your mind. Visualize in that, like, see an apple in your mind, or daydream in your mind, work out scenarios, see objects and things. And it's connected to something called anhedoralia, okay, which is where you don't have an inner voice or an inner monologue. So there's not that voice inside your head. So some people have a voice inside their head that is them, like it's their voice. Some people, it's other voices, it's different people's voices depending upon the situation. I have always referred to it as your inner narrator. So it's kind of like, now the dogs are going to fuss with each other. It's kind of like if somebody was telling the story of your life, like there's this narrator who's narrating as you go and has sassy comments sometimes, but also because I am Jungian in my approach to psychotherapy and psychology, that is based on having a shadow and archetypes that will speak to you in ways. Now, for some people, that may be visualization. For others, it is a voice, it is words. So it was interesting to me after watching this little TikTok video of somebody who doesn't have this. It really made me think deeper, especially coming off of the demon face syndrome from last Sunday, the last live, about how all of this is connected and why are we hearing about this now, right? Because we've all heard about what a conscience is before. We some of us may remember Jiminy Cricket, that soft, still voice inside your head. So why are we learning about it now? So when I looked it up, about 4% of the population don't have inner voice, inner visualization. Now, what's interesting is when they studied it, they found that 30 to 70% of people use it regularly. So essentially, half of people utilize their inner voice and their inner visualization regularly, which means that the other half of people who have it don't even use it. Now, for people with anxiety, I can kind of hear all these people with anxiety saying, must be nice, because that voice goes all the time, right? So let's look at this article that talks about um, the tweet. Okay, let me share screen here. Okay, so this article that was in the New York Post talks about the original tweet. Okay, so hold on, I gotta clear my throat. Okay, so it says, hopefully y'all can hear me because I can't see the chat again. Okay, so it says, fun fact, some people have an internal narrative and some don't. As in, some people's thoughts are like sentences they hear, and some people just have abstract, nonverbal thoughts and have to consciously verbalize them. And most people aren't aware of the other type of person. Interesting, right? So 3,000 replies. So, like I said, suddenly people were like, which one am I? This person says she didn't even know that internal dialogue existed until she saw the tweet. Nina says she has multiple voices. Toya's in here. You guys tell me, do you visualize? Do you hear a voice? Which one do you have? So this person says, if I talk to myself, it's all out loud, which I do that too. I think a lot of people with inner voices also talk to themselves out loud. There's actually a study, and I didn't pull it, but there's a study that shows that people who talk to themselves actually, on average, have a higher IQ. So this person says, I think a lot of people have both, which again, studies that have come out after this, they have both, right? The dialogue's not always your best friend. Again, shadow, shout out to shadow work. He says it's not, don't overthink it. So interesting, huh? Okay. So Toya says, my excuse is I'm an only child. Right. When you want conversation, you got to talk to yourself. Adric says, I hear my voice internal and out loud. Yeah. So, in looking through these studies, again, some people said like, it's my voice. It's somebody else's voice. It's different voices, my parents' voice. But other people, here's the thing. If you've done something for as long as you've consciously known that you are an individual, it's hard to then think about, wait, do I visualize? Do I have a thought? Do I hear words? Is there a sentence? Right? But for those of us that do, or maybe have like a really highly developed imagination where, so one of the tests, I will tell you this, one of the tests says to visualize certain things, right? Think about it in your mind's eye and then describe it. And one of them is think of an apple. And people who struggle to visualize but still can think of an apple, but it's very 2D. It's kind of like when you're in grade school and there's that like drawing of an apple with a thick black border, and it may be black and white or maybe red when people struggle. I'm one of those people that somebody says, think of an apple, and it's got gradient red. It's got the little white dots in it. It's got a stem with a leaf that's kind of moving. It's got juice that's coming down the side. Like that is how far I go with my visualizing, which again is why I get off track easily, because I'll start thinking of other things, or I will start having an internal dialogue about other things. I'm having a whole other conversation in my head outside of what we're talking about. Okay, so That was the article, and it showed the tweet, which got it going. But I want to show you guys the video, the TikTok video that I saw, where I was like, this is coming straight off of them saying there's a new syndrome called demon face syndrome. For anybody who wasn't in there before when I did this video, this is it's a visual processing, I'll say, disorder is what they're saying. It's a syndrome. And it makes it to where on some people they appear like demons, up to and including like eyeballs popping out, their teeth doing weird it's not just misshapen the way a visual disorder would be. And we talked about how different lights maybe affect this, and saying that because the treatment is to get green glasses. So with it coming off of that, I wanted to talk about it. So let's watch this TikTok video.
A question out there for people who have inner monologues, or can hear music in their head, or can picture things when they think about them, actually picture them in their mind's eye. Because I have neither of those. I have aphantasia and anauralia, so I have a silent mind, and I don't have the visual cues either. My question to you is, how the fuck do you function every day? I mean, really, the videos I've made about this subject and people commenting going, oh yeah, I hear like loads of songs at once. Oh, my inner voice won't shut up. Do you realize how insane that sounds and how terrifying? You are basically hearing shit that doesn't exist. You are seeing shit that doesn't exist. Literally shit doesn't exist and you're experiencing it. How does that not terrify you every single moment of every single day? I asked someone if the voice they heard is theirs, and their answer, sometimes. What the actual fuck? You hear voices in your head that aren't even yours? Oh, how do you function, people? I mean, that's absolutely mad. Really, it's mad. I've had people tell me before that because I don't have that shit in my head, that it must be so boring and they can't imagine how awful that must be. You have shit in your head that doesn't exist. You have a voice in your head that sometimes persecutes you. How the fuck am I the one who's at a loss here? I mean, Christ, it sounds like the inner monologue and picturing things in your head is the worst possible thing a human can encounter. Like, wow.
Interesting, huh? So for those of us that do have that internal imagination and visualization and have that internal monologue, I saw some of the responses to this, and it was like, if that ever went away, I would feel alone, right? And some other people were saying, the voice itself may not be my voice or the way I hear it in my head, but I know they're all me, right? Like, it's not psychosis where you may think that the government or aliens or somebody is talking to you. It's not like that. Psychosis comes with delusions. And for people who have this inner monologue, it's not delusional. They know that it's them. They know they're thinking through something. I don't know about you guys, but I've literally worked out problems by having an argument with myself inside my head. Well, what about this? Well, okay, if that, and we've all seen somebody having a conversation with themselves where they're like, and you know what they're doing, right? Okay, Nina says, I can't imagine a quiet mind. Like, that actually sounds terrifying. But like most things, if you've had something the entire time that you've consciously been an individual human, then for it to go away, it would feel like a loss, right? Just like you've had, two arms your whole life. You lose an arm, it's going to feel like a loss. So I guess it's like that. You don't miss something you never had. I'm not sure. So when I was looking into this, got on a rabbit hole. This is why I bring you guys my rabbit holes, okay? They're gonna get weirder. When I was looking into this, and of course I have that demon face syndrome in my mind, so I'm looking. Both demon face syndrome and aphantasia have to do with the fusiform gyrus. So this is a part of the brain. Okay, so I brought up when we talked about demon face, it has to do with the fusiform gyrus. The fusiform gyrus is part of the ventral stream in the brain. So what that is so light comes in as light waves, right? It's a frequency. It comes in as light waves and it hits our optic nerve and goes through our optic frontal cortex. So that front part of the brain. Okay. And then it follows the stream, which is kind of on the end bottom side of the brain, right? So, it goes in and it creates this stream. Now, the stream is where we perceive things. So all this happens super fast, right? Like speed of light. We understand speed of light. So for aphantasia, it is things. So we see a thing, okay, and it goes in our eyes, hits the nerves, goes in through the orbital frontal cortex, and streams around, goes in this ventral stream, okay? We know what things are because we've heard language that has told us what it is, okay? But both demon face syndrome and aphantasia and anauralia, to a certain extent, have to do with this ventral stream. So it was interesting to me about, okay, well, what all is attached to this ventral stream? Hi, Rael. Thank you for being in here. Cutting up with the Joneses says, I find myself talking on one side of the conversation in my head and I just know what their responses are. Oh, yeah, I can get that too, where like my inner voice is asking me questions and I don't really say the answer. Like it's just coming up with, well, what about, and have you ever, and what, which I was having a lot with this rabbit hole, right? Because I had, after the stream, looked deeper into that demon face syndrome and saw the ventral stream. And then I'm looking like, is the pituitary gland part of the ventral stream? So like I was trying to look at it from a metaphysical sense or esoteric or, even spiritual. I was trying to see if there was any meanings that could be gleaned from it from that perspective. And so found the ventral stream, that's where it's at. It does not cross the pituitary, so it's not part of that. But this ventral stream is how we perceive and know things, right? That we are sensing. It's how we perceive and know objects. It goes through the orbital frontal cortex of the brain, which again, I shouldn't say again. I've said many times that most cultures and all ancient cultures said that the brain was more like a computer and your mind is not in your brain. Your mind is actually in your belly. So this is why people say things like trust your gut or what does your gut tell you? It kind of harkens back to that your mind is actually not in your brain. So I'm just talking about the processes, okay? So again, I'm thinking Jiminy Cricket conscience, right? Jiminy Cricket said a conscience is that, how did he put it? The small voice inside your head that nobody listens to. So then I have to think about the orbital frontal cortex, right? So what is that for? What, besides seeing things and it being part of this stream of perception, what is it for? So this is where it gets interesting, guys. The orbital frontal cortex mediates behavior. This is what it's necessary for. So the orbital frontal cortex is necessary for sensory integration. So we just talked about that. Modulation of visceral reactions. It's like physical reactions, like, learning, prediction, decision making, emotional behavior and reward related behavior. Well, that kind of sounds like your conscience, right? Like prediction, decision making, emotional behavior, reward related behavior. Like that sounds like a conscience, right? So I'm not saying that people that don't have that don't have a conscience by any means. I am saying, however, from that perspective, it's pretty interesting how I don't want to get conspiracy theory too much, but like I said when I did the Demon Face show, was that it's interesting that it's coming out now or that people are talking about it now. If this is a thing and it's been a thing, there should be history about this thing. And when we look at ancient writings, we see people talk about being able to visualize and being able to plan things through your thoughts. Um, Even today, when people talk about manifesting through your thoughts and holding your vibration to a certain level when we talk about, this spiritual kind of stuff. So I'm not saying people don't have a conscience, but I'm saying I think it would make it very difficult to listen to a conscience. It would also make it very difficult to be insightful into your own state of mind, your own emotional being. Again, this is what the orbital frontal cortex is for. So I did look up gender and racial differences in orbital frontal cortex. But I want to be careful with that because if I'm going to bring up the fact that this modulates behavior and it can be related to psychopathy, which I haven't even told you that part yet, but it can be. I don't want to insinuate that certain races or genders don't have a conscience or, can't modulate their behavior, obviously. Now, where psychopathy is concerned, the orbital frontal cortex operates differently in people who have antisocial personality disorder. And they've also seen that people with orbital frontal cortex damage struggle with insight, empathy, appropriate behaviors, things like that. It kind of harkens back to when they first discovered lobotomies, the way they discovered lobotomies. There was a man working on the railroad. His name was Phineas Gage. And, they had to tamp the railroad irons in there, the nails, the ties. And they used like a little explosion to jam it into the ground. And he was doing that and things got backwards and it flew into his head and out the backside and went straight through there. And what happened was his personality completely changed. And so doctors, being the people that they are, were like, well, if somebody has a dysfunctional personality and we make that same damage, then it'll make them have the opposite personality. Because Phineas Gage was like super sweet, married guy, family guy. Everybody loved him. And then after he had that damage, he's inappropriate, terrible jokes, violent, his personality changed. But what they found was it either made people zombies or it gave them an even worse personality. So there's a connection there between behavior and empathy and insight and modulating your emotions and those kind of things in there. So if my email is in my about, if somebody's interested in the racial differences in aphantasia, I will give that to you. Hey, Snowman. Oh yeah, so tomorrow night, Snowman and I are going to talk about stuff I don't know anything about. the WNBA, a specific person, but I was asked to come, and for Snowman, I will come. I will come, and we will talk about it. I am going to put the link in the chat. If anybody wants to talk about this, we can talk about it from a scientific perspective or even an esoteric perspective. If it's not something people want to talk about, we don't have to, or even like the demon face syndrome or other things that kind of play into that, and the why now. I don't mind getting a little conspiracy theory-ish, but again, I want to be responsible with the information that I put out. So everybody's kind of quiet today. Maybe everybody had a Monday, right? Okay. So I think when we talk about aphantasia, or when we talk about demon face and how it has to do with light frequencies, it does make me wonder about how this inner voice may have something to do with how we're perceiving frequencies or other frequencies around us. Is it possible, kind of hearkening to shadow work, like I talk about, that the inner visualization and the inner voice has to do with the collective unconscious and being tied into the collective unconscious, or from a quantum physics perspective, does it have more to do with being tied into the quantum field? Because all this is new and it hasn't really been studied, it's hard to say. Oh, Adric says we're accustomed to Sunday. I appreciate the people who came on Monday, though. That's so nice of you. I will do better to stay on Sundays. I'll do much better to stay on Sundays. All right. It's just going to be a short show then today. Just wanted to talk about these different disorders. If you guys hear about new disorders or new things that are coming out, let me know, because I love to rabbit hole, and I will go down the rabbit hole and find all the information. And I generally, after I've gotten all the information, will kind of start taking it to different realms. Can we attach it to quantum mechanics? Can we attach it to psychology? Can we attach it to shadow work? Can we attach it to metaphysics in some way, spirituality, religion, those kind of things, just to kind of get a good perspective of it. So just let me know if you guys see those things. Otherwise, I hope everybody has a fantastic Monday evening. Shout out to the replay gang. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And I will be on next Sunday, and we'll get back on schedule. All right. Bye, guys.